Happy Tuesday, Central Georgia, and a happy first day of July, officially in the second half of 2025, which is hard to believe. So we have a lot to talk about with today's weather, although if we get through the messy day today, it should make for better conditions as we head into the end of the work week. But first things first, we wrapped up our 6th month of the year so far with a couple of spotty areas of some heavy rainfall, especially farther down to the south here in Central Georgia. Some of these green shades and yellow shades equated to maybe around 2 to even 3 inches of locally heavy rain in some spots. Our highest total was found just to the northwest of Abbeville, right in the middle of Wilcox County, 3 inches totaling there. Just shy of 3 inches over in Dooley County around the Lake Blackshear area, just west of Cordele. And scattered amounts, maybe just above an inch, closer to 2 inches in areas like Montgomery County, down into western Telfair County. But the farther north that you travel, you can see that some of the spots of rain were found farther up to the north and northeast here in Central Georgia, but those totals were hovering somewhere around an inch, definitely a little bit lower in some areas. Warner Robins right here, in fact, only recording about a trace of rain. So that's just going to be a couple of droplets, not even enough to really amount to 1/100th of an inch. And then spots over in Taylor County, just around downtown Butler, did see close to about 2 inches of rain. But areas like Macon, areas like Forsyth, getting up into Monticello, close to Eatonton, over in Perry, down in Houston County, didn't see anything in the way of rain. So it was fairly good coverage, and this was all courtesy of what we call those sea breeze showers and storms. They moved off the Atlantic coast, ushered in some of that Atlantic moisture, and they did keep going for quite some time, but they were very, very quick to weaken and dissipate in nature. So let's talk about the numbers first of all. 92 for a high temperature yesterday, which is 1 shy of our average high. And once again, our average low was just about 1 degree below what our average low this time of year is. Nowhere near the record of 108, nowhere near the record of 58 for that record high and that record low temperature. Checking out our year departure of rain. So we didn't record anything at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, at least anything that amounted to a total above 1/100th of an inch. So we finished the month of June still nearly 5 inches above average, where we should be this time of year in terms of rainfall. Sunrise yesterday was at 6:30 and sunset was at about 8:46 in the evening. Although we haven't been getting too good of a glimpse of that sunset because we've had plenty of showers that have been in the forecast. So let's talk about your June rainfall. 30 days on the map right now, and we can see that finally we put a stretch of 5 days in a row recording rainfall at Middle Georgia Regional Airport to an end for the very last day of the month. So our total so far for the month of June, well, I say so far, but really we're done with June now. So just over 8 inches of rain recorded in the month of June, and that falls over 5 inches, or actually just shy of 5 inches, excuse me, my math was a little iffy right there, just shy of 5 inches above where we averagely should be in the month of June. And the record, 12¼ of an inch of rain, didn't quite get too close to that, but still we were closer to the record, I think, than our average June rainfall. So taking a look at 2025 as a whole, as of yesterday, you see that number that we just showed you on the almanac, nearly 5 inches above average. The month of June was hovering nearly 4 inches above where we should be. So May and June were very wet months. To kind of offset that, we did have a dry January, we had a dry February, and not much relief on March and April. At least those boxes are green, so they were above where we should be. But May and June really just took it a step farther. And those two numbers equating to about 7 inches of rain above average for the month of May and the month of June. So let's talk about your headlines. We will see a steady decline in rain chances as we go into the second half of the work week, but we have to get through today first. The weekend is still shaping up dry, but that's all dependent on the tropics. So we'll go over the latest data and the updates from the National Hurricane Center with our potential area of development down to the south of us in the northeastern Gulf and then over in the western Atlantic Ocean. So the cloud cover does look to be breaking apart a little bit, but it's been a very overcast morning all across central Georgia. We still have plenty of clouds in the picture, so that's probably going to keep our temperatures still at bay. Yes, many areas are still hovering somewhere in the 70s. So the cloud cover is not all too bad because obviously what you want to walk out the door to is some nice and sunny skies, see a beautiful sunrise. However, if we keep that cloud cover around, it's going to inhibit that warm up for just a couple of hours. That's why these temperatures are definitely a lot cooler than they were this time yesterday. Seeing some lower 80s farther up to the north and the northwest, 81 down here in Vidalia. Everyone else hanging out in the mid to upper 70s, even nice and pleasant down in Eastman, 75 degrees, 76 degrees in Dublin. Nothing to complain about whatsoever besides the humidity, because we do see plenty of the dark green color still in this dew point temperatures map. So while the temperatures don't feel too bad, it is noticeably humid as you do walk out the door. So lots of moisture is still in the air really across the entire state of Georgia. We have some patchy areas of light green that you see just right up here below the banner, but that's not really going to have much of an influence. That's still probably dew point temperatures somewhere around 69, maybe even down to 68 degrees. Nothing really substantially dry. We'll talk about some of that drier air as we go into the next couple of days. So here's a look at your feels like numbers. We are popping up a 90 up in Forsyth. Many areas are already feeling like the 80s, even the upper 80s right here in Gordon. But few areas are actually feeling true to their actual value. That's really going to be Dodge County and Lawrence County, feeling right on par at 75 and 76 degrees. Still feels like the upper 70s in Johnson County over to Emmanuel County, and feels like 79 degrees in Crawford County. Maybe just a bit late to get an update to that number because most of the neighbors of Roberta are hovering somewhere in the low 80s. Winds and wind gusts, a little bit of a breeze the farther east that you do travel, kind of coming out of the south right here, seeing some shades of that blue color. A steady breeze about 5 to maybe 8 miles per hour in those areas, our far southern and southeastern counties. But the farther northwest that you go, not seeing much in the way of gusty winds, relatively calm conditions right now. So let's talk about that heat index today. This graphic has been fluctuating a lot over the course of this morning. It's bumped these numbers down to 92s and 93s, and we do see it popping back up to some 95s. But this is going to go for Macon itself. Macon pretty likely to get some rain later on today. And that's what this meteogram is picking up on. You see that drop down from 4 p.m. all the way to 5 p.m. Feels like numbers around 95 all the way down to 90 degrees. But some areas that don't get anything in the way of rain, you just get some nice partly cloudy skies. You continue to stay dry during that warmest section of the afternoon, 3 to 4 to 5 p.m. Then you're going to see some feels like numbers into the upper 90s, maybe even around the triple digits as well. So I think we have a little bit of maybe some, what's the word I'm looking for? We have a little bit of an issue, I guess you could say, with our satellite and radar picture, specifically our radar, because you saw these showers over here across the state line in Alabama, and then they just pop and go away. So we're getting a good image of the cloud cover right now. It is fairly broken in nature, so some peaks of sunshine enveloped within there, but it doesn't look like we're picking up on much in the way of rain. Let's see if we can zoom it out and maybe pick up on something. Nope, still tapping into this Jeffersonville radar, so probably some maintenance going on with that. We should have that up and running here in the next couple of hours. At least I hope so, because it's looking to be a fairly active afternoon, evening, and nighttime. So let's go to your surface map and talk about what's going on. Nothing really going on big weather scale wise with any of these clusters of showers and thunderstorms off the panhandle, but you can see that a cold front continues to push closer and closer. There's a center of low pressure surrounding this cold front, but this front is going to continue to push down towards the south and the southeast. That's going to drive today's rain chances, number one, but also what it's going to do, it could usher in some slightly drier air as we finally go down into the weekend. And it's going to take a while for that slightly drier air to get here, but it will be well worth it because of the timing of it being 4th of July weekend. So our average high, once again, 93 today. Our average low is up to 71 degrees. I believe we might actually hovered above that number this morning. I don't think I saw a number below 72 degrees on the temperature map. 108, the record once again, 2012. Wow, that was just a hot year. I think this is the third day in a row that the record was from 2012 for some upper 100s temperatures. Sunrise this morning was a minute later than yesterday at 6:31. Sunset at the same time. It's going to take a while for that sunset to get a little bit earlier. The sunrise will continue to get a bit later each and every day, maybe about a minute or two. So going into today, the main headline, that front moving in, because it's going to drive a more organized chance of some showers and some storms. A steady breeze out of the southwest at about 5 to 10 miles per hour is what most are going to be dealing with, but some gusts above 15 miles per hour will be present in some strong to maybe even severe thunderstorms. And once you get into that strong to severe criteria, winds are virtually going to be gusting up to 40, 50, maybe even as high as 60 miles per hour is the range that we have outlined today. But if you don't catch rain, a high temperature of 90 degrees, but like I said, going to feel a little bit warmer. Feel like the mid 90s, feel like the upper 90s. A couple areas will probably even pop up a triple digit mark. But we've got to see that cloud cover break apart before we do get numbers like that. And if we fall shy of it, I'm sure that is no complaints for many, because obviously it's been a fairly good stretch of some hot weather as of recently, but we're still continuing to keep these temperatures below average. And obviously the humidity makes them feel a little bit warmer, but at least we're not dealing with temperatures in the upper 90s where the humidity makes them feel more like the upper 100s that warranted some heat advisories last week. So let's go through Future View, talk about the timing with today's rain chances. We go into 1 p.m. just after midday today. Scattered showers already beginning to pop up into the picture. We can see some pockets of some heavier rainfall within this, but this is going into 3 p.m. Still not looking like much in the way of strong weather, but we're seeing a little bit of fluctuation with this. Future View earlier actually had a pretty good line of some showers, even some pockets of heavy rain that could indicate our fair share of thunderstorms, and that was around the 1 p.m. hour. So just past lunchtime, just know activity is going to start to get going. It's going to start out very scattered in nature, but we will see clusters try to group together for some more widespread impacts. But the latest run of Future View seems to hint that most of the rain is going to remain scattered for the first part of the afternoon. Then we transition into the evening, sometime around 6 to 7 p.m., and then we finally see some of this weather get its act together, try to organize a little bit more, and this does look like our fair share of some pockets of some strong to severe thunderstorms. This is at 10 p.m. tonight, but the good news is this is at 10 p.m. tonight. If this line is going to be moving in around that time, obviously our fair share of some strong to maybe even severe thunderstorms that can pop up ahead of that main line. This is going to drastically weaken as it runs out of surface heat to work with. So this is midnight. We see this breaking up and kind of seeing some clusters that are still holding on to maybe some heavier points of rainfall. But overall, it just continues to weaken and weaken and weaken as it pushes into central Georgia into the overnight hours. But we still are going to have some showers and maybe even some low-end thunderstorms hang around with us into the late nighttime hours, more so the early morning hours tomorrow, before finally we're clear of rain to kick off your Wednesday morning. Can't rule out a sprinkle or two maybe greeting you out the door within some of that cloud cover. But then we go into Wednesday afternoon, and this is where the good news starts. You can see scattered rain bubbling up during the heat of the day, but still very scattered in nature, not much organization, and not nearly as widespread as what we're dealing with for today on Future View. We continue all the way through your Wednesday afternoon, evening, and into the nighttime hours. Once again, the timing's looking very similar to the rain chances we've had over the last couple of days, but still very scattered and a better chance that you stay dry Wednesday as opposed to your Tuesday. Now we go into Thursday, same song and dance, operating off the heat of the day. We'll still have some sufficient moisture in the forecast, but that front that's driving today's rain chance and maybe that definitive line of some showers and storms later on into the nighttime hours, it's not going to push through very, very quickly. It's going to kind of stall once it gets close to central Georgia, and it's going to very slowly creep down towards the south as we go into the next couple of days, into Wednesday and Thursday. Still hasn't quite made its presence known, but we're starting to see that most of the rain chances are really farther down south in central Georgia and in the southern portion of the state by the time we get into Thursday. So it does look like finally that front does kick into gear. And then we finally see the passage of that actual boundary. Well, what's going to follow between that? You know, what we talk about these cold fronts that typically we see cooler and drier air behind them. Well, it's the summertime months, so cooler air, go ahead and throw that out the window. But that drier air can make all the difference with giving us some pleasant weather. So here's a look at the day one storm outlook. You do see kind of a blob of a risk right up there in Nebraska and South Dakota, even a level 2 just to the west of North Platte. But now we go into this frontal boundary, which is having widespread impacts along the East Coast, including a level 2 and even a level 3 up in areas of the mid-Atlantic. But down here in central Georgia, we might have seen a little bit of this kind of pulled down towards the south and the southeast, but this risk still mainly just encompasses our northern and our northwesternmost counties. Not to say that all the severe weather, all the strong weather is going to fall in these counties up here in the shaded green risk. We know weather doesn't obey the boundaries that we give them, but number one, we are seeing these areas outlined in a risk because this is an organized weather threat. There is a driving mechanism with it. rather than just your typical diurnal and convective pop-up showers and storms like you normally see during the summertime months and like we've seen many of the past couple of days. But the potential threat's going to be some gusty winds and some heavy downpours. I've highlighted heavy downpours because all of you know that thunderstorms have their fair share of some heavy rain, especially in that core of the most intense rain, which you can't even rule out maybe a couple of pea-sized hail signatures with a strong or more so a severe thunderstorm later today. But I'm going off on a bunch of tangents right here. I have outlined the risk of heavy downpours because it could result in some isolated flash flooding. I have a graphic coming up next to talk more about that, but I did want to tell you that even if you're really close to this level 1 risk, you still could see your fair share of a strong or a severe thunderstorm. The weather is not going to obey this cutoff line right here and say, oh, okay, once I get past North Macon right here, I have to weaken because I'm not in a level risk anymore. We could see this line hold together a little bit longer, have more impacts down towards the south and the southeast, but the confidence is greater farther up to the north and the northwest, really mainly north of central Georgia, but we do see many of our counties outlined in this level risk, so those areas are going to be the ones that probably have the greater chance of seeing some strong to severe weather later this afternoon. Now let's go to your day 2 storm outlook. We were seeing some pop-up precipitation chances, very scattered, and maybe seeing a storm or two. And we can't rule that out. We still can't rule out seeing a strong or a severe thunderstorm, but it does look like nothing is going to really be driving those tomorrow. This is going to be a very reminiscent summertime day, and it doesn't really look too likely that we'll see anything in the way of severe weather, but can never say never during these summertime months. Now we go into day 3 on Thursday, still not in a storm outlook whatsoever. So we're looking better as we go day by day over the next 3 days and pair it up with future view. But I did mention those heavy downpours, and that's number 1 because we have been outlined in an excessive rainfall outlook. So we're in this marginal risk, which is the lowest risk, meaning isolated flash flooding can occur, and this is going to be the day 2 excessive rainfall outlook. So this is valid through not only today, but also through tomorrow. And then if we take the day 3 outlook, it does encompass our southeastern corner that's left out of this excessive rainfall outlook right here. So just meaning all of central Georgia, we have some very saturated soils. I just showed you all those rainfall totals. We are well above average. The ground is very well hydrated. So of course, when you have a very saturated ground, well, it can't drink much more water. So if we're to get some of that heavy rainfall, it's just going to puddle up above the surface, and that can contribute to some loose soils and make trees more prone to being blown down when you have your gusty winds with some thunderstorms. But it also can result in some isolated flash flooding, specifically those low-lying areas near some standing bodies of water. So maybe near a pond, near a creek, near some kind of stream. Or also if you just have an area that doesn't really drain well, maybe at the bottom of a hill or such, those areas are going to be more prone to some isolated flash flooding. And of course, make sure you turn around, don't drown. Any puddles of water can be a little bit deeper than they do appear, and they can make for messy driving conditions. They'll increase the risk of hydroplaning and such. Make sure that you are being careful in any of those puddles of water that do try to develop. But that's not set in certain. That is the lowest of the risk on the excessive rainfall outlook. Just means a couple areas could see some of that flash flooding. But we did get a flash flood warning last Friday night, a cluster of some very heavy rainfall from Bibb County all the way down to Peach County. And it did actually cause a train derailment over in Peach County. So just kind of telling you what we could expect if we are to see some of the heavy rainfall linger over the same areas for an extended period of time. But the pool going to be a great thing to combat the heat because once again, I know 90 degrees doesn't seem all that hot because it's below average. It's below what our temperatures were last week, but it's still going to feel like the mid and upper 90s, maybe even the triple digits in some areas. The pool is going to be a great way to beat that heat. There are better rain chances farther up to the northwest, but still continue to play things by ear if you live farther down to the south and the southeast. If dark clouds are approaching, you're hearing thunder off in the distance, that's your sign to go ahead and head indoors and just stay indoors until whatever rain or whatever storm does pass. And of course, gusty winds going to be possible, 15 plus miles per hour within maybe a thunderstorm or two, and they can get even gustier than that in a strong or a severe thunderstorm. Sunset tonight, 8:46. We already went over that, but just want to reiterate that point so you know what time it's going to start to get dark at. So over the next 3 days, I've upped the rain chance from just looking at everything this morning. It's looking like about a 60% chance of rain today all across central Georgia. But now we're down to 30% for your Wednesday. It's kind of iffy for Wednesday. Obviously, Future View didn't show much, but it still may take a little bit of time for that front to finally push through. Areas down to the south of the front are still going to continue to get that lift ahead of the boundary. So we may see a little bit of an increase in the rain chances on Wednesday, but the high temperature does bump up at least 1 degree as it currently stands right now. We'll continue to see what the models say when we come in tomorrow. But then we go to Thursday, down to a 20% chance of a shower or a storm, and that high temperature is now up to 93 degrees. So you notice the trend here, the downtick in rain chances is going to result in a little bit of an uptick in those high temperatures, because when we have a lot of rain in the forecast, it's not going to allow temperatures to get to that warmest number that they typically can during the afternoon hours, because rain is going to pop up and it's going to cool those temperatures down. Well, without much rain in the forecast, these temperatures are just going to continue to climb as high as they can go. But 93 degrees is still pretty average for this time of year. And there might be some relief in terms of that feels like number by the time we get to Thursday. But first things first, it is a big travel week for many people, out of town plans and such. Today is going to be the first day that you notice a slight uptick in traffic. A lot of people may be taking some extra PTO days, some extra holiday days in order to enjoy the full week of fun with friends and family. And we're still going to see that uptick in traffic into Wednesday, the main time frame around 3 to 7 p.m. But then we go into July 3rd on Thursday. Heavy PM traffic starting at noon going all the way until 8 p.m. And of course, it's going to vary according to where you are. If you're traveling on back roads, probably not dealing with as much traffic. But this forecast is for the main highways here in Georgia, issued by the Georgia Department of Transportation. Friday is still looking like the best day to travel, the 4th itself, because many people will be taking that day before off. Many people will already have Friday off, so maybe getting going on the road on Thursday. So the 4th itself does look like your best travel day of the next 7 days. Then we get to Saturday and Sunday, getting back to a little bit more congestion on the roads. 5 to 8 p.m. on Saturday, going into 5 to 8 p.m. on Sunday, where once again, heavy PM traffic is expected for many folks heading back into town so they can get a good night's rest for work on Monday. But still, we could see above average traffic as we go into Monday, because many people will probably be taking that day off to make for a bit of an extended weekend. So just kind of trying to correlate some surveys and such to really give you an idea of what's going on the roads. But you should plan on just about each and every day being a little bit busier than normal, starting today all the way into the beginning of next week. So let's talk about those afternoon highs. I did show you that uptick over the next 3 days. The 4th itself is actually going to be the warmest day I have forecasted. I went with 95 degrees and then 93 degrees on Saturday. I do believe we'll hover right on that edge of low to mid 90s as we head into the weekend, but I did mention there is some relief in terms of the feels like temperatures. From today all the way to next Monday, there is a steady downtick in the moisture level each and every day. We start to get a little bit better on Wednesday, a little bit better than that on Thursday, but really starting to feel some of that slightly drier air by Friday on into Saturday, on into Sunday. And we could even see an extra reinforcing push of some drier air by the time we get to Monday. But the farther right we go on this graphic, we typically don't see it being the most accurate of what's actually going on. So let's talk about the feels like numbers. I'll go ahead and spoil this for you. Not much relief over the next couple of days. Mid to maybe upper 90s throughout today before rain gets going into the forecast. We go into tomorrow, not as much rain in the forecast, so some upper 90s, maybe even flirting with the triple digits are going to be possible. And then we go into your Thursday, and once again, even some shades of pink right here, so we could see a couple triple digit values by Thursday. I did show you that steady downtick, but of course the temperatures will be going up to counteract that. So it's still going to produce feels like numbers in the mid to upper 90s, even a couple areas around the 100 degree mark. So that goes all the way to Friday at 2 a.m., just like our graph future view model does go. But now let's talk about the long range models. Let's go to the 4th of July itself on Friday. How about this? The entire state of Georgia really going without seeing anything in the way of rain. That front is finally cleared out, pushed down towards the south and the southeast. But I do want you to keep your eye on what's going on over here, just to the east of Florida. I'm going to move over here and try not to stand in the way of the timestamp. We'll flash forward to about 7 p.m. on Friday. Still looking predominantly dry, with the exception of maybe a short-lived shower or a storm in nature, but it's going to be very isolated. So it does look like that drier air is making its presence known across the southeast. We go into Saturday at 12 p.m. There is still a whole bunch of rain down here to the south, off the Atlantic coast, off the Gulf Coast of Florida. It does look like right now the consensus is the Panhandle is trending to be the driest area of the state of Florida. So for any of you traveling out of town going down to Florida, the forecast down on the Panhandle does look a little bit better than, say, the peninsula of Florida. Areas like Tampa, getting down to Orlando, Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Daytona Beach. It's going to be a very wet forecast because that front's going to try to push down there. It's going to stall, but then we're going to start to see maybe some tropical organization with some of that rain down there. But we continue into Saturday night up here back home in central Georgia, still trending dry. So check mark on the first day of 4th of July weekend, check mark on the second day for your Saturday. But why stop there? Let's go ahead and give ourselves a 100%. Still looking very dry as it does currently stand all the way through your Sunday afternoon. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that this is actually what happens. Of course, the long-range models aren't the best. We typically get a better idea just a couple days out when short-range future view puts the resolution within view. But it doesn't look like we see too much going on besides a whole lot of rain down in the state of Florida. But we're not seeing the agreement that we did see yesterday of maybe something trying to organize down in the Gulf. It does look like if anything tries to organize, it in fact might be off the Atlantic coast, where we're starting to see a good cluster of some moisture according to the models, and that may be riding up the Atlantic coast, coastal areas of South Carolina, North Carolina. But this timing looks like it would be more so Sunday into Monday as opposed to any day throughout this weekend. Then we go into your Tuesday, still trending dry here in central Georgia. We may see some kind of a frontal boundary try to creep close by then, but overall we're not getting good agreement or a good consensus that that's going to happen. It does just look like there is a whole bunch of tropical moisture. It's very disorganized according to the long-range models, and it's well off the Atlantic coast, so hopefully we can deal without that tropical moisture really enhancing our rain chances this weekend. So speaking of the tropics, let's go back to this area that we're monitoring for potential development. As of 8 a.m. this morning, was upgraded from a 20% to a 30% chance of developing over the next 7 days. Not much improvement whatsoever, so that's why we've still maintained virtually the same forecast for this weekend. I'll talk about it when we get to the 7-day. But we did have Tropical Storm Barry form as of the last couple of days. Just as quick as it formed, it was allowed to weaken as it moved over eastern Mexico, that dry desert land. So the next name on the list would be Chantal. So that is going to be the next name to claim if that area does decide to get its act together, have some better chances of developing. And it would be the third name on our 2025 hurricane season list. The only one to impact land has been Barry. Andrea formed in the northern Atlantic Ocean, and it was simply a fish storm, and it probably had a lifespan of about 12 hours or less. So talking about the frequency, we're heading into a new month now. You can find ourselves just about halfway in between here. So we're still in a very kind of lull of the season so far, not dealing with much in the way of tropical activity, but the increase in tropical activity is going to be quite exponential as we go all the way through July into August, into September, and September 10th, that official peak of hurricane season. Then after that, activity does start to lessen in nature and lessen in frequency, but the season began on June 1st, so we mark a month into hurricane season, have seen 2 named storms so far, haven't really had any major impacts. So let's go to your 7-day forecast. Temperatures trending upward, rain chances trending downward. I've kept the 20% for Friday, for your Saturday, for your Sunday. If this were any other scenario, I wouldn't have any rain chances on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but this is to cover the bases because we could see some change with that potential area of development down in the northeast Gulf, over in the western Atlantic. And if it does decide to get its act together, that is a whole lot of tropical moisture that it would definitely increase the rain chances. But overall, temperatures trending around average, going to feel a lot truer to their values as we go into the weekend with lesser moisture content. But before we get there, we have to get through that one blemish, which is today in terms of some showers and storms. So that'll do it for your extended forecast for today. We'll be back once again for another look at your weekend ahead tomorrow at 10:30.